Hello and welcome to today's video. Today's episode of the Racing Debrief. And here we are. It's the final NASCAR portion of the Racing Debrief here in 2023. It's been a fun ride doing this series for a good amount of the season, honestly. I believe we started in about March, so good amount of the year. So, that's kind of the spot we're at. So let's discuss both F1 and NASCAR races from the week. Let's start with F1. We'll start with Brazil, the Brazilian Grand Prix, or Sao Paulo Grand Prix, whatever you want to call it. Nobody really didn't call it the Sao Paulo Grand Prix, let's be honest. Yeah, we've seen another Max win. In both the sprint and the actual race. So he's up to another 5 race win streak already, which is pretty awesome. 17th win on the season. I've loved that. That's been cool. We'll start with qualifying a little bit before we dive into a little bit of the race, just to touch on how wild that storm was at the end of that. Just crazy to see the conditions go from super bright and sunny to the most dark clouds I've ever seen. Literally made the track night. Just very interesting conditions. Set up for an interesting grid as well. With Max and Charles Leclerc on the front row, followed by Lance Stroll in third. But didn't stay like that for long. Go to the sprint, and Max easily took the lead on that one. Sprint was kind of just boring. I mean, the sprints are kind of just whatever. They're not really beneficial. We jump ahead to the race itself. That had a little bit of interesting moments to it. Charles Leclerc's car said no, basically at the start of the race in the formation lap, and he basically said everybody, why I have such bad luck, and that's genuinely a question to ask. I mean, every single thing that can go wrong for him typically does. So I got no idea. You got to feel for him on that. Just disappointing for him going out like that. At the start, you had Alex Albon and Kevin Magnussen crash into each other. Albon was kind of hit by Hülkenberg into Magnussen. They both went spinning off the track into the barriers with a red flag. Tires flew off of it, off the cars, and hit Daniel Ricciardo's rear wing, and Oscar Piastri got hit in the backup. So both of them had wing damage. They were about to retire. Went in the garage. Their teams did some work on the cars for them. Got them back in the race. They were non-factors after that. But again, it set up an interesting start, because that was kind of the real start of the race. At that point, you got to the the top spots, whatever. What am I saying? My mind is definitely not on this this part of the video, I'll be honest. They started it. Max got away pretty much right at the start. Lando made a challenge at him for a little bit, but Max pretty much pulled away from there. You had both Alfa Romeos go out of the race, so more issues there with some of the the thing. Oh my god. Out of the race. Ferrari engines struggled, I guess. Looking at other things, and of course the end, Alonso and Checo having that battle. That was brilliant. That was a great part of the race to watch. That was like 10-15 laps. Checo finally got by. Kind of threw in a corner right after the start line. Through with that first turn. That allowed Alonso to get DRS on him and actually have the lead over him for third place going to the finish of the race. And super close finish. was it 500ths of a second? So I mean they were right there. But Alonso back on the podium, so there's that. All right, let's jump into the NASCAR part. My mind's definitely on the end of this video. So yeah, I do apologize. It's a little bit all over the place, but yeah. So NASCAR, we're going to start with the Truck Series. Of course, that race was a disaster. It was pretty obnoxious to watch, I'd say. Just having everybody crash into each other. Carson Hocevar getting to Corey Heim. I genuinely believe Hocevar didn't do it on purpose. I really think he didn't. But again, Hocevar's got this history that is getting into people. So it's one of those things where nobody's going to necessarily believe him if he says, I didn't do it on purpose. Even if he didn't, I think his reaction in the car or in the truck, you could tell he didn't mean to do it. And I think mentally he was just done from there. I mean, the next restart, he dropped from like 4th to 18th, and it was just out of it. Race goes on. Grant Am gets towards the front. He's leading championship. There's about, 10, 15 to go. Corey Heim knows he's not going to win it, and he just decides to take Hocevar out. And I felt that was a ridiculous move. I think that it's not going to help Corey Heim get fans or get respect on the track. I think what you've seen from him and from that situation, it was a bad look. It was genuinely a bad look. You could have definitely taken the spot, been the better man in the situation, just said, I'm going to talk to him after the race. To sit and kind of fall back intentionally and wait to put him in the wall is a very low move. I think it's one of those plays that it's not going to look good. I think he's going to regret that eventually, someday. But I think that that's just not an acceptable move. I found that to be worse than what Hocevar did. I think what Hocevar did was wrong. In the situation, you gotta just go a little easier. But again, I don't think he did it on purpose. But I think what Corey Heim did definitely is on purpose. Of course, he's gonna not say it, but he said it over the radio. There's clips of him saying he's gonna, Carson Hocevar is not getting out of here, whatever. So to do that move, not cool. And it also cost Grant Am winning the championship. He would have won it. Ben Rhodes got in a spot to get ahead of him. So, yeah, it's just not a move to make. So Ben Rhodes wins the truck championship. It's what you get with this format. We're going to talk more about the playoff format at the end of discussing all 3 days, but that's what you get. Ben Rhodes is not anywhere near the best statistical driver in the season, but he won the championship. Moving ahead to Xfinity. A little bit more tame. Still a very, very good race. I really enjoyed it. I think that the truck race was not super enjoyable when you had 3 or 4 overtime restarts. I think that was just dumb. The Xfinity race, that was enjoyable. You had good battle between the championship drivers. It was definitely Cole Custer, John Hunter Nemechek. They were the best two in that, and Cole Custer ended up winning it in the end. Little disappointed John Hunter Nemechek didn't get that win. Pretty much all the drivers that I wanted to win the championship in 2 of the 3 races came second. And in that one, would have came second if he didn't get some contact. John Hunter Nemechek got contact, got a flat tire, crashed out towards the end of it. The last lap he crashed. But Cole Custer won it. I mean, Stewart Haas getting a championship is the first time that they've ever gotten an Xfinity championship. And Stewart Haas as a team hasn't won a NASCAR championship since Kevin Harvick did in 2014. So, cool to them get a championship. I would have definitely liked to see Jordan Hunter Nemechek get it, but Cole Custer got it. And, driver that wasn't the best in any statistical categories pretty much got the championship. So, playoffs killing it this year. Which is really, really good after, especially what the truck championship showed. But again, just with, I believe it was Steve Phelps who said that the playoffs rewards the best drivers and whatever. It's not gimmicky or something like that. And then to have the drivers who weren't the best win the championships and end up like it did was a little unfortunate. So we skip ahead now to the Cup Series race. And in that, it had solid action. Again, I think that there's improvement to be made with the next-gen car on, shorter tracks. I wouldn't necessarily put Phoenix as a short track, but it's not a mile and a half. It's in a weird category. Phoenix, New Hampshire, Gateway. They're kind of in a strange spot where they're not short tracks, but they're not intermediates. They're just there. But they run the same short track package, so lump them into that group. Again, the racing that you see at the tracks like Martinsville, Bristol, North Wilkesboro, Richmond, New Hampshire, Phoenix, Gateway, probably what we're going to see at Iowa next year. The cars just don't have that performance, that ability yet. It's getting closer, but it's still not where you want it for competitiveness on those tracks. And I think that's hurt the championship at Phoenix more than anything. I think that the championship at Phoenix could be cats doing their thing. It could be a viable track eventually for a championship. But are we going to let it get there? That's the part that I think is interesting to see. But again, the race is solid. William Byron was ahead for a good amount of it. In the championship 4, he led a good amount of race laps. I think the whole first stage he led. Kevin Harvick had the lead for a little bit. Chris Buescher had the lead. But then Ross Chastain just pretty much dominated it after end of stage 2. Christopher Bell was out pretty early with a brake rotor exploding. Cut a tire, put him in the wall. One of the rare times you see the Cup drivers in the championship 4 crash or have an issue of that magnitude. Of course, you've had little issues, but being crashed out, you don't typically see that. 2016, Carl Edwards crashed out, and 2022, Chase Elliott crashed. He got spun by Ross Chastain, and then this year, Christopher Bell having that. But typically, you don't see many issues like that. You see it a little bit in the trucks and Xfinity, but not as much in the Cup Series. So that was kind of surprising to see Christopher Bell go out like that. So then it became the Championship 3, as they were saying in the broadcast for a good amount of it. And there, you've seen Ryan Blaney just look like he had that good car, and Kyle Larson really didn't. Kyle Larson was chilling, kind of third of all of them. Pretty much the whole time he was third best. Second or third best, but typically third. Ryan Blaney just had that spot over him, had that position. And he got it when it mattered. He had a late caution that put Kyle Larson, jumped him from third of them up to first, and he just couldn't hold off Ryan Blaney. Ryan Blaney won the championship. So I thought overall it was a solid race. It was an interesting race. But I think this year really highlights the lack of the best driver winning the championship. I think that racing having a full season format is what you need. You have it in F1, you have it in IndyCar. Whoever scores the most points throughout the season in that series wins. Now, you can make an argument it's not as exciting. Like, okay, we talk about F1 on this channel. Obviously, I'm big in F1. Max Verstappen is my favorite driver. Max Verstappen won with 6 races to go. Is it necessarily exciting in F1 to watch Qatar, US, Mexico, Brazil, Las Vegas, and Abu Dhabi knowing who won the championship? Maybe not. Then you have to look for other storylines. Who's going to finish second? Constructors. Who's going to finish second? Who's going to finish third? All right, whatever. But at the end of the day that the best driver won, right? Because if you make it a one-race playoff, say F1 had that, Max went to Abu Dhabi and didn't win, and Checo somehow finished ahead of him, Checo was the champion for the year, would you say that's the most deserving driver? You wouldn't. So, obviously there's a difference in F1 where lots of times you have one driver dominate, one team dominate, right? You see that pretty much. Look at the last, since 2010, you've had 2 teams and 4 drivers, right? Mercedes or Red Bull, Sebastian Vettel, Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, Nico Rosberg, right? So, it's a little different when you look at NASCAR, where there hasn't necessarily been that domination, and honestly, looking at consecutive championships is not that frequent. Even, looking at a full season format, it's not common, right? Looking at a full season format, the most in a row ever has been 3. And typically, you had a few drivers get 2, right? But not normally is it common to have multiple championships in a row. So, it is a little bit different in that aspect. There's more drivers, there's more competition. But at the end of the day, to go in and say your best driver won, I don't think any of the 3 series can say that. Looking at a full season points, Corey Heim should have won in trucks. Looking at a full season point, John Hunter Nemechek should have won in Xfinity. I didn't see who it is for Cup, but I believe it should be Denny Hamlin. Thinking back to what it was before, I think Denny Hamlin was just behind Christopher Bell in what would have been a full season point format. So, there you go. Alright, and now it's time to come to the end of this video. The part that is the most difficult. I discussed it at the end of the last video. Kevin Harvick retiring. It's a difficult thing. I've had, drivers I've liked retire. Top 2 favorite, Tony Stewart. I was always a fan of Tony Stewart. When he retired, it was not as emotional as this, though. Again, I've always said in the videos, Kevin Harvick and Tony Stewart, my favorite 2 drivers. And again, Tony Stewart retired. It was one of those things that it was emotional for me, but on a different thing, a different level, right? I've liked both the drivers forever, and when he retired, it was definitely one of the things that was it was sad, but it was definitely okay, that's gonna happen. It's probably time to retire. And definitely one of the things, I was a fan of him when I was younger, so I didn't really have that same understanding of liking a driver that I do now, and that impact, right? And Kevin Hart's the driver I've been a fan of as long as I can remember. I mean, again, if you've seen me on social media, that's not YouTube. I mean, this. Let me see if I can find where's this image at? It's gotta be somewhere in here. Nope. That's not it. This picture, if you guys have seen it, before, that's from 2001. So I've always been a fan of Kevin Harvick. Again, it just feels different. When you sit and say who's your favorite all-time driver, it's Kevin Harvick. So 60 wins, 2014 championship. It was emotional, especially the last few weeks leading up to it. Seeing some of the cool things early in the year, it didn't hit the same, right? It was like, okay, this is going to happen. He's going to retire at the end of the year. There's rumors that he wanted to after 2021. Yeah, it's just something that I don't know how to put into words the meaning of what it meant to watch him race every week. How special those races were, and looking back at those moments, those races that he won throughout the years. Again, the first one that I really remember is 2007 Daytona. That's one that I remember. So yeah, it's been a good run. For me, the most special moment is the 2014 championship. I think for people it's between 2014 and his first win at Atlanta. Again, I was too little to remember that. Probably watched it, but I was 2. So, 2014 championship. Is a special moment, and I'm looking at the picture right here. Back when the NASCAR Illustrated magazine, if you guys ever remember that, they used to give little fold out posters in it. And this one's Kevin Harvick, 2014 NASCAR Sprint Cup champion, with a few pictures on it. And that's a special moment there. So seeing that Budweiser car come back, that was probably the first time that I was like genuinely emotional about it. Seeing that 29 car on track with that throwback paint scheme to 2001. It was cool. It was cool to see because, again, I was too young to really remember seeing it on track. So that was cool, but it didn't have necessarily that emotion level specifically for me. I'm sure for a lot of people it did, but it didn't for me because I was so young. I just thought it was so awesome that they recreated that. But seeing that Budweiser one, it was a little emotional. And, yeah, so there was that. And then just last week discussing he's going to retire and how emotional that was. Throughout the week, there was a little bit of an emotional moments, but it really hit when we did the post race interview. I mean, I'd seen that, and I knew it was coming, and I was like, "That's gonna be the moment that's gonna get me," and it did. Um, but you know, you gotta let out that emotion that moment, and that's when it just did. So yeah, um, I don't know. It's gonna be weird going into next year, but I don't know. There's every driver retires eventually, so just got to enjoy the moments when they're here. So always special moments to look back and get back and enjoy. So yeah, just thankful to be able to enjoy those moments of watching Kevin Harvick race, and just thankful for that, and glad to have been a fan. So that's that.